Now that we've created the map in Photoshop, we can bring that back into Max and start fitting our geometry to the map. So let's go ahead and open the file. I did save out that one file that we had as on the desktop as mailbox 02. And what that is that was the mailbox with the Unwrap UVW applied. So before we do that, we have to create a material. So I'm going to go over to the material editor, and I'm going to select an empty slot. And in the diffuse channel, I'm going to put a bitmap. And from the desktop exercise files 03 mapping, it's called UVW mailbox. And that's it. So I just click and drag that onto our mailbox, hit show map in viewport, and well, it's there, but it's not what we're looking for. But once I hit edit, it will actually come up. It'll actually come up in the Edit UVWs window. I'm going to scale this down a little bit so we can see everything. Now, it's just a matter of moving this geometry to match the picture. Pretty simple. Now, there's a number of tools here that we can use. We also have a number of options here. So if, for example, the bitmap's too bright, you can turn down the brightness. You can see how many tiles you want. So if you wanted to tile beyond this, you can do it. I like the fact that it tiles because then you can spread out your map fairly easily. We also have constant update and so on and so forth. Pixel snap. We have a weld threshold, so when we can actually weld vertices in here so that we get a seamless map. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to close that, and we're going to actually use just selection modes. We also have a soft selection so you can actually tweak things. But I'm going to start with these selection modes. What we have here is we have vertex, edge, and face, which is very similar to what we have in modeling. So I could, for example, select just vertices and move them. I could select edges, groups of edges, and so on, or I can select whole faces. Now, in the Unwrap UVW modifier, we also have a sub-object called Select Face. So you can do it the other way. If you highlight this, we can go over to our model, and I can actually select faces on the model, and they will show up in the Edit UVW window, and vice versa. So if I selected all these faces here, I can see. So it's a good kind of a visual feedback to see what you're selecting. It's like, okay, well, which one of this is the right side and the left side, and so on and so forth. So this way, at least you know. And you can also, if you click this select element, it just selects groups of connected vertices. So that's good. And there's also one other here. There's a plus and minus here. So if you select just a face, you can hit plus and it'll select all the surrounding faces. So it's a good way to grow and shrink your selection sets. But I'm going to do select element. I'm going to select this, and I believe this is that corresponding side, which is, I think, the left side here. So what you can do is you can just move and rotate these. So, for example, I can just move these over here so that they fit, but I can also rotate and scale. There's also a really nice option here. It says rotate plus and minus 90. So if I rotate that minus 90, it pretty much lines up, and then all I have to do is move it and then scale it. Now with scale, if you hold down the shift key, move your mouse up and down or left and right, you can see how you can scale that into place here. So we want to get this pretty close, and if you right click here, we can move, and then I'm going to go in and tweak it vertice at a time. As a matter of fact, you can see right now it's already fairly close. Look at that. Now the legs are off, obviously, but see how easy it is to map that. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. I'm going to turn off select element, grab these, or maybe even turn on a little bit of soft selection here, and increase my fall off just a bit, maybe a lot. I don't know. Yeah, to about 12 here. And then as I move it, you can see I've got a little bit of soft selection here. So I'm just going to move those over to the edge, but I don't want to get too far over. And do the same on this side. And then I'm going to turn off fall off here. Select these. Move those over. And again, what I'm doing is I'm fitting this geometry. Now, there is this kind of, I'm going to turn off edged faces here. If you notice here, there's this line of rivets here that kind of should match up with this leg and this kind of edge loop of this geometry here. So I just want to get that kind of lined up. Now notice how I can, like, if I move this really far, it really stretches the material. So you do need to try and keep these fairly even in terms of parameterization, or else you're going to get stretching on your mapping here. So I just kind of want to get this just about right. Get this leg here. And then do the same for the other side. Okay. Well, you get the hang of it. It's actually fairly straightforward. It's not that difficult of a thing to do. There we go. Okay. Anyways, well, that's good enough for right now. Now, the more important part of it is actually getting this vertical part. So what we need to do is we need to stitch together that front and basically that virtual sheet of paper we're draping over there. So here's I'm going to actually bring up my brightness here so you can kind of see a little bit better what I'm doing. So I'm going to grab some of these ones from the front. So that grabs, so when I grab that, okay, so this one here is the front. So I'm going to hit select element, grab that, rotate it 90, actually plus 90, I think. Yeah. And then I'm going to move it over here. Deselect it. Okay, yeah, I've got it the right way. So I'm going to select that again and scale it into place. Holding down the shift key. And then moving it. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get this here, this little edge needs to line up. So I'm going to grab these. I'm going to turn off select element here. Grab these and move them down. Just a bit. Yeah, right about there. And now since I moved those down, I probably should move these down as well. And I'm trying to get this to be approximately the same scale. There we go. And of course get the insides of these legs, which what I've got is I've got this against white, which is probably not a good idea. What a lot of people do is they flood fill everything with a kind of a random color, or even put a layer behind it that's kind of a pseudo texture of this. So if you do go over, you're not going to get little white splotches showing through. Now, what I need to do is I need to find the edge that this has, and we need to start building that top. So if I look here, what it does is if there's a connected edge right there, it shows up in blue. So when I select this edge here, this one shows up in blue. So what I need to do now is move this over. And again, rotate it plus 90 and move it into place. And then what you can do is you can actually snap these. So what we have is we do have a weld option here. So if I want to, I can weld these edges together just like with modeling. And I just go weld selected by right-clicking. And what I do is I'm just basically piecing together this entire thing. So now I want to select the top. There's the top. Okay, so I'm going to select my element here. And it looks like I've actually welded the wrong part together. But, so for example, this one here, if you notice, I've got this red selected. This red part here says that this is part of these two connect. So it's a really good handy way to do it. So I'm going to scale, hold down the Shift key, and then move them into place. And basically what you do is you work your way through the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and take these vertices here, select those two, weld them, these two, weld them, and so on and so forth. And you just work your way through the entire model. Now if you look at it, see I've already got, the top is pretty much there. I mean, obviously there's some, this is going over into the white, but all I have to do is move that over just a little bit. And as you can see, we're already got a much better parameterization of this. And so what you do is you literally just go through this whole thing and stitch them together. Now there's going to be some parts here that I didn't specifically map, like for example these inside edges here. I didn't create a map for those, but what I did do was I created a kind of just a generic map here, so I can just move those over here. And in fact you can use the same part of a map for, so for example now I've got those insides already mapped. And the legs, I can use any one of these legs to map the legs. That's one thing I like about tiling. Now, for example, the door. Where's the door? Here's the door. Now, if I want, I can move this over to the door. And so on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward. And just scale it. There. So that's basically how you do it. And then you just work your way through the whole model. And once you're done, I'm going to go ahead and actually just open up the version that I finished. And that's, no, I'm not going to save my changes. That's in that same directory. It's called Mailbox 03. And here it is. Pretty much. Now we can take a look at the UVW map here. Oops. There we go. Now I did this one before, so I actually moved them all over to here. But you can basically see, now you see how I stitched together the top there, and so on and so forth. So, and actually I've got some lights in here, so I'm just going to unhide all. And I'll show you a rendered version of this. There. That looks pretty good. Now, I didn't do a lot of geometry, which I probably would have if I was really modeling this for a high-res thing. Like, for example, this sort of stuff here, I didn't model. Now, this might be good for just a game or something else, but if you really want a totally realistic one, then you're going to have to model, like, the rivets and stuff. And maybe you could probably do some of that as displacements, but still. But even though, for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, however long it took us, it looks pretty darn good. So, hope that helps you understand UVW mapping. And now we're going to move on to the next lesson.